African Traditional Religion by Nicole Rum. What is traditional religion? Traditional religion covers a large group of religions, but some of the key aspects are oral tradition, which means that it is passed down through word of mouth, usually over long periods of time, hundreds of years, though it is a very trustworthy system due to the fact that people are memorizing things, telling them through stories to their children, their grandchildren. There is not a lot of variance in the facts. This also means that there is no original founder and they have no sacred texts. A huge part of traditional religions is their belief in the spiritual world and the fact that they do not separate the spiritual and the physical world. They really emphasize the spiritual world in their use of rituals and magic. It's really the belief that they can use magic to influence their reality through the spiritual world. And this comes through veneration of ancestors and nature spirits, and also the idea of mana, which is described as the belief that material objects contain power. And we will go into more depth on the idea of magic and witchcraft and the actual applications of these things within specific tribes. But this is just a basic overview of some aspects of traditional religion. Now, more specifically, what is African traditional religion? There are hundreds of African tribal groups, and each tribal group has their own culture, language, and religion. African traditional religion, or ATR, is more than just a religion as Western cultures usually treat religion. There is no such thing as a separation between church and state. ATR is an all-consuming culture, religion, and identity. ATR features many different tribes, and because of this, each tribe has a devout loyalty to their own people, and they treat each other like family. Every tribe in ATR will emphasize tribe pride over national pride. Who is the god of African traditional religion? They do believe in a supreme god, much like the God of the Christians, and Cordon even ventures to say that historically they're the same God, although in application, ATR treats this God very differently from the God of the Hebrews. Many treat this God as the sky god, creator, and all-powerful God. However, he is distant and uninvolved in their lives. Some believe they need a mediator to speak with him. Some believe they can approach him personally. Usually, however, the supreme God is not dealt with. He takes the back burner to the ancestors and the nature spirits. They are quote-unquote monotheistic, but in reality, they worship a variety of spirits and divinities. And as mentioned before, the main aspect of this spirit and divinity worship comes in the form of ancestor veneration. In ATR, they believe that the dead are never really dead. The dead are as much a part of the community as the living, and the spiritual world is considered a counterpart to the physical world. And therefore, there are relationships happening in the spiritual world, social dynamics that affect the physical world. Something interesting about ancestor veneration is that they rely on the remembrance of their descendants. So once the descendants have forgotten a specific ancestor, that ancestor has no authority or connection to the earth, and they can't make any effect upon the earth. The most common way that ancestors interact with people is through dreams. They can communicate warning, encouragement, advice, guidance, and if the living person ignores the ancestor's message, they could be greatly punished. So there's a great culture of fear behind visitations from ancestors. Usually it's not something that people look forward to. It carries a lot of anxiety and fear. Traditions and rites are a major part of ATR. Traditions and rites look different across each individual tribe, but usually they reflect some sort of birth rite of passage, some rite of passage from adolescence to adulthood, some rite of passage from marriage or in marriage, and some rite of passage into death. And then we will look more specifically at the Maasai tribe and their rite of passage from warriorhood to junior eldership. But usually those first four that I mentioned are reflected across most tribes. Something interesting about the birth rite of passage is that most tribes don't believe that a child is actually a human being until they have passed the birth rite of passage. And this is due to infant mortality rate. And they actually exempt the tribe from mourning the death of the child if they haven't gone through the rite of passage. And I think this really says a lot and tells into their value of humans. And it's really just a strange definition of when life begins, but it also tells to the gravity of their traditions and rites and how it really does define where people are in society. A huge part of their traditions comes in the form of magic, and we have two roles here, the healers and the shamans, both of which try to manipulate spirits into getting what they want, but they take different roles. Healers are more external. They try to control spirits from outside of them, while shamans invite the spirit into them and really take on a sort of possession where they no longer have control. This is a huge aspect of ATR. If a person is sick in a tribe, they will likely go to a healer. They almost never go to doctors because the healers act as their doctors. Sickness to them is not a physical reaction, it is a spiritual thing. If someone is sick, they have probably had a curse placed upon them and they need a healer to take it out of them. This is where the idea of witchcraft comes into play, which there's a ton of depth behind witchcraft, but I'll just briefly mention it as the cause of almost all suffering within tribes is believed to have some sort of witchcraft behind it. So like I said, sickness usually caused by witchcraft. And witchcraft is really just the negative use of magic. People who practice witchcraft have a strange role in society because they are recognized, but their individual identity is usually hidden. And the society can turn on them at any moment. If they decide they don't like that this one person died due to their curse, they will likely go burn them. And there really is a strong sense of fear culture in ATR, and you can see this through the things that they call taboo, which are really whatever they choose to make untouchable. And it really comes down to just myths and legends that have been passed down by ancestors and given to instill fear from external influences. ATR is very focused on keeping their personal identity pure. Now we're going to look specifically at the Maasai tribe. They are found in both Kenya and Tanzania. There are estimated 900,000 in the tribe. They are internationally well known for preservation of their culture amidst different modernizations around them. They do, however, only make up 0.7% of Kenya's population. Although the Maasai tribe is well known for preserving their culture, they have had to make some changes due to modern developments, such as their practice of female circumcision. This is a very controversial topic, and many believe it to be abuse towards women. And so for that reason, Africa has outlawed female circumcision, and therefore the Maasai tribe has had to make changes to their culture because of it. They've also made changes in their value of education for their children, and they understand that the future of their tribe lies in the education of their children, and so they are making advancements towards that goal. Daily Maasai life, however, doesn't look much different from how it did hundreds of years ago. They have no electricity, no running water, no technology. They depend on the spring nearby for all of their living. And this is really what many tribes look like in ATR.